Welcome to the Law by Leo podcast.
Welcome to the Law by Leo podcast with the founder of Law by Leo, Alex Leonowicz. In high compliance, and we're talking high compliance industries like cannabis, gaming, and peptides, the rules can shift fast. And in 2026, you need a legal strategy that moves as quickly as your business. I'm Leann Lyon, and today we are talking about a date, November 12th, 2026. If you run a hemp or cannabis business, that date should be circled on your calendar because it's the day the federal definition of hemp changes. Today, we will talk to Alex about this change and what the operators should be doing today to be prepared. Alex, let's get into it. How are you today, by the way?
I'm doing well. It's always nice to see you, Leann.
It's great to see you. So before we get into the legal weeds, which we can and probably will, can you give the listener the one-sentence version of what's changing in November?
Sure. Very simply put, the definition of hemp is what's really changing in November. Without getting too much into it to start, it's there's been a little bit of a loophole here in the Farm Bill, and it looks like that's about to change here towards the end of this year.
So tell me what that change is.
The main takeaway in what I've been telling clients is the definition of hemp is really going to be defined, and that what it's going to be, Leann, is 0.4 milligrams of THC per package. Okay, so if you operate in hemp or cannabis, you see that the Farm Bill's been expanded and interpreted a number of different ways. But putting it more simply, people have taken advantage of the lack of a strict definition of hemp to make products which look and mimic cannabis or THC and utilize the Farm Bill to do that. So that definition is getting more stringent. The federal government is going to stand by their definition of that, but that closes the loophole for the Delta 8, these THC drinks that you're seeing at gas stations and on supermarket shelves that a lot of consumers are getting confused on, that they believe it is cannabis. They think it's the same, and they're not. They're totally different in the way that they're made up. So that definition will get changed. But the impact on the marketplace, I think, is going to be big.
So why is the word container or package such a loaded word in this, the 0.04 or 0.4 milligram per container cap?
It really puts a tight confine on the definition. And what I mean by that is it really limits it to per package. So you used to see 10 milligram drinks, you used to see 5 milligram edibles, and now per package is going to be 0.4. That's it. You can't do it by weight. You can't mush it all together and make it a little bit more. It's really going to limit the amount of THC that you can have in your package. And so what that means is a lot more micro doses as opposed to a larger 10 milligram or 15 or 20 milligram that I saw consumers, and I've seen them on shelves being marketed today.
So you mentioned a couple things earlier, Delta 8, HHC. What gets knocked out? Edibles, beverages, what survives?
It's looking like all of those that don't or exceed that 0.4 milligram mark. And that's where that per package piece comes in. A lot of those are going to fall out, and the ability to order those online, to get them delivered to your house, it's going to push a lot of that back into the cannabis market. So what was previously happening a lot was I heard from a lot of cannabis operators some frustration with this, right? They have to pay taxes. They go through strict licensing requirements. They can't transport across state lines. Their bank accounts get shut down. And then on the flip side, there's hemp operators, which are seemingly creating a very, very similar product to cannabis operators, but aren't faced with the strict requirements that they can't transport it across state lines. There's a little bit more banking leeway with those guys. So they're essentially getting all the benefits of working in a THC space without the regulatory oversight or scrutiny.
So the cliff is real, the data's set. Why then does it feel like half of the industry is just la 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 proceeding as normal?
And that's the scary part for me is I think when you come from a heavily regulated industry, your rules change all the time. There's talks of them being redone. There's new rules that roll out all the time. And I think for both cannabis and hemp operators, there's a lot of, I would say, wishful thinking that this is somehow going to be redone or unwound or pulled back. I'm a little bit more of a proactive type person, so I like to get ahead of things. And so I've encouraged a lot of people to start looking at your SKUs, start looking at your banking options, and don't wait. Because I do see a lot of operators and owners just hoping that this goes away. And if it doesn't, it is a very serious cliff, and it will have very serious consequences.
Well, this is not just a passing interest for you. You're very deeply involved with this industry in many different ways. So how are you actually seeing, or what are you seeing in the market right now? Are there some operators at least preparing, or are they more in the paralyzed or denial stages?
I would say it's about 50-50. So the good operators, and by good, I mean those that continue to run solid businesses, have expanded appropriately, not gotten over their skis. Those are the ones that are quietly preparing. And they're doing that through some of the things that I mentioned. They're reaching out to their bank today to ask them, how is this going to work? They're also finding cannabis-friendly banks to work with, and that will help them in the instance that, more scrutiny comes under their and over their accounts. If you think your bank isn't aware of this or looking at this, you're dead wrong. They are most certainly going to be applying a higher level of scrutiny to those operating in the hemp space following November 12th. So reaching out to your bank is one proactive step that I see, I'll say the first 50% doing. The other piece is controlling their inventory. So we did this a lot when I had my businesses. When these rules or regulations get uncertain and you're not sure how they're going to go, the one thing you don't want to do, Leann, is that you don't want to be heavy, right? You don't want to be extremely loaded up in product. You want to start to run a little leaner, a little bit slimmer as you get to that mark. So, if it doesn't change, you're prepared. You're not trying to offload 50,000 SKUs in 30 days. You'll never do that. And you'll be left holding the bag, or worse, you're going to try to push them out through unregulated markets and potentially expose yourself to some greater liability that way. So talk to your bank. I thin out my inventory a little bit. And then the last big one that I see is looking at each SKU. So a lot of people look at them by brand, and that's not the right way. Look at it by your SKU. Can you reconfigure this product or this SKU within the new confines? There's a lot of brand loyalty. There's a lot of confusion, good and bad in the marketplace. So this microdosing model is still very real. There's still a lot of people that are going to purchase these products. So figuring out what to do with that, how to do that, and really evolving and pivoting as you've done consistently in a regulated space. Those that do that well will be successful and will continue to navigate.
I know you've said that panic is expensive and paralysis is worse. Can you unpack that for us quickly?
Yeah, sure. The basis for that is really just don't sit there. I see it a lot, and we all do it. It's human nature, right? When something's difficult or tricky, we'll take the less difficult thing and deal with that and then push that off. And that gets expensive quickly. The same example, leaving a ton of product on your warehouse shelves before you ship it because you don't want to deal with it. Wake up early, eat the frog, whatever saying you want to use, but get after it and go look at these. Align yourself, reach out to an attorney, find some guidance, just take some steps forward. And it's okay to be panicked, right? It is nerve-wracking a little bit. You've built a business model based on the set of rules that were presently before you. And those are going to change. So you need to change with it and be fluid and continue to move and bob and weave, as I say.
And so is this different than other regulatory pivots that you've lived through or that we've seen? I mean, even in March, there was a big pivot in the financial industry with FinCEN ruling, and that is already reversed. Or is this still the same movie with just a new villain?
This is a big one. So I wouldn't say it's nothing we haven't dealt with or seen before, but it's a major change. And, I think a lot of folks working in the hemp space under the previous definition of hemp, I don't want to say we're taking advantage of it, but they recognize that there was a bit of a loophole there, right? There's little to no enforcement on those things. And so you've built your entire business model based on that interpretation. And that interpretation, its very nature, is changing. So you don't get into this space and expect smooth waters. They're going to be a little choppy, but if you're on the hemp space and you're producing infused beverages or 10, 20 milligram gummies, this is a big wave, and you're going to have to rethink how you're doing things and navigate through that.
So tell us about illegality clauses. What are operators missing in their own contracts?
Yeah, this is the nerdy legal thing I can't help but point out to some of my clients. But there are some agreements that have what we call illegality provisions. So if what you're doing or something you're doing qualifies as illegal, it could give the other side the ability to render the contract null and void, or as if it never existed, or it would put you in breach of that contract. So I've had some clients actually go back and look at their contracts, and we've done it with them as well for these provisions. So they can either amend them now before this comes down. They can start to have those conversations with folks. But again, it's that proactive approach, Leann, where you're really getting ahead of this. So you don't wait until November 12th passes. We thought it was going to change. It didn't change. And not only is your business in a state of flux, but you've got contracts that are, in essence, no longer valid, or worse yet, you're breaching that contract by pushing product which federally and technically is illegal, and could arguably give the other side a basis to call that breach and begin enforcement action. So when I say get ahead of it, I'm serious with that.
Let's talk about that federal comment just now. The states are actually moving faster than Congress. So which one should operators be watching the closest?
This is a tough answer, and probably the one they don't want, but it's both. The states are moving quickly. We see California, for example, implemented their intoxicating hemp bill. I thought it was Massachusetts, and I think Missouri have some others. One of them I think just got stalled, and that would be Ohio. They had one to more heavily regulate intoxicating hemp products. And so those states are changing. They're not waiting for the federal regulation to change. And the other thing I tell operators as well is you got to remember, like, there's two sets of officiants here, right? You've got the federal rules, which you got to play by, and the state rules. And you need to understand how those two interplay as well. So what may be good at the Fed level might not be good at the state level, and vice versa. So navigating those terrains, that's where a good attorney is worth their weight in gold.
Everything you just described, contracts, banking, tax, licensing, M&A, sits in at least 4 different legal specialties. Most operators can't afford a full legal department. So what do?
That's really the very essence in the creation of our fractional general counsel model. So this is a model that came out from my own experiences. So as you may know, I was at a law firm for a while. I left, started my own business, served as the general counsel for that business, and then subsequently left. So what that means is that I was the person sending the bills, and then for a while I was the person opening them and getting them from other attorneys. And one thing I found, Leann, is that those people that work at traditional law firms and lawyers traditionally, they come in, they solve that certain problem, and then they leave, right? They more or less answer the question you asked. And what fractional general counsel does is it asks the questions you should know to ask. So they're a little bit more aligned, and rather than having a full-time general counsel in your seat or working with a law firm for just one particular problem, they sit right in that middle there, where they're aligned with you from the start. It's not a full-time seat with a general counsel, so you don't have the equity, you don't have the heavy payroll, but you get this dynamic team that can tackle all of those different issues that you have along the way with more of a business mind to it, as opposed to just one person who's going to fly in, answer the question, and then send you an invoice and leave. So I think the fractional general counsel model, particularly for high compliance businesses like cannabis and hemp, is really uniquely situated, and I'm excited to continue to launch and work with that with a lot of operators in both those spaces.
So I think you've really clearly explained why at this moment with this specific cliff that the fractional GC model really proves its value. But just to be clear, how is it different from using just outside counsel on project per project?
The nice part with the fractional general counsel model is we take a long time to really get to know you in your business. So one of the initial steps, Leann, we do is we sit down with businesses, and it's almost like a 10 to 12 hour deep survey. What do you got? Where are your contracts? Where are you looking to go? How are you structured? What are your issues? And from that, we formulate like a 90-day game plan. Okay, so we look at everything you're looking to do. Here's what we can fit in for the 90 days. And we spread that out according to what you believe are your highest and best issues. Okay, that's very different than a traditional law firm that you're calling because you need a contract negotiated, because you're getting sued, anything of those sort. And what that initial phase does for us is it gets us aligned, and then it systematically takes us through month by month these different projects, these different levels, these things to work for, with the goal of making you a smarter and better operator on the legal side. So let's face it, if you're a CEO and you're a CFO and you're negotiating or looking at contracts, one, it's probably terribly boring. It's probably your least favorite part of it. But more than that is you're really doing your company a disservice. You're playing in waters that you might and probably shouldn't be. So calling or hiring an attorney is expensive, and it's uncertain. You're not clear how much you're going to get charged every single month. Fractional general counsel does away with all of that. So the billing is much different. It's much more straightforward. They're not nickel and diamond for phone calls and emails. It's one set price. Here's your services. Here's what you get in exchange. If you need to bump it or move it, we do almost like a special change order for you to give you an update so you're aware. But the big thing is transparency. It's communication. And more than anything, it's the alignment and making sure that everybody's focused and we're heading down the same path together.
Beautiful. Love that. And that wraps up this episode of Law by Leo podcast. Thank you for listening. And in 2026, the right legal strategy isn't just about protection, it's also about growth. So if you enjoyed this show, please like, share, and subscribe to make sure you hear every episode. To streamline your compliance and secure your next big move, visit Alex and his team at lawbyleo.com. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Leann.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.